Hello and welcome back. So, I just got home not long ago from watching Wonder Woman 1984, Wonder Woman 84. I don't know how the title's supposed to go correctly, but anyway. So, I didn't necessarily prepare notes. It's just my initial thoughts and ideas that just come from me just seeing this movie for the first time. So this is a bit more initial reaction where I didn't necessarily get to sit down and take notes and everything through it. This is more straight reaction sort of thing on Wonder Woman 84. Now, before I get into that, let me talk about the last Wonder Woman movie that came out 3 years ago. The Wonder Woman movie, the first one from 3 years ago, where Wonder Woman is in World War I, is probably, in my opinion, one of the better superhero movies out there. Does it need a little work? Yeah, but it has great characters and actually has good action, just several good moments, great soundtrack. Gal Gadot, who plays Wonder Woman, is enjoyable in the first movie, as well as Chris Pine as Steve Trevor, the pilot and American spy that she teams up with in World War I. And yeah, it's just a lot of the casting and everything to me was like spot on with my understanding of who Wonder Woman is and all the characters involved in her overall comic history and everything. Now, again, I'm not somebody who reads comics. Most of my exposure to Wonder Woman has been through the Justice League cartoon series from 2000 and any of the other little animated movies that DC's been releasing over the last 20 years. So that's been my exposure to Wonder Woman. And aside from maybe Googling and doing a little research and reading on some people, I don't know that much about Wonder Woman. I may know more than probably the casual person may know, but that's just my understanding of it. But I love the first movie. It's probably one of the few times I've actually seen a movie more than once, maybe even twice in the theaters. I think I may have seen it maybe 4 times, possibly. But I enjoyed it that much. Not to say it's my all-time favorite movie out there, but it was enjoyable. And it was one I was willing to at least share with other people. So, this one, 1980, so Wonder Woman 84. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I had a good time watching it. Did I maybe enjoy it as much as I did the last one? Maybe not. I think there are some parts that I could probably have done without or redo if it were me. So here with this movie, we kind of pick up with Wonder Woman in 1984, where in World War I in 1918, where she leaves her home and ends up joining Steve Trevor, who's a spy for the Allied forces trying to end World War I. Wonder Woman finds out the horror of war and find out about just kind of the era of humanity compared to being raised on an island where it's paradise, so to speak. So now we pick up years later, and she's still been living among humanity for near over 60 years, a little bit more. And despite being involved and stuff like that and living life, she still does a little bit of superhero stuff on the side, just not quite as out there per se. She's not like Spider-Man or anything like that where everybody knows her. She appears and then she disappears, and she tries to eliminate all traces of her existence from security cameras and photographs and stuff like that. So that way the world doesn't necessarily know who she is, when really, in some case of the people she's saving, especially in the opening ball sequence, everybody sees her. So, and it's just like, really, you're not doing a good job of hiding you who you are or anything like that. It's not if this is trying to line up with Batman v Superman, that was supposed to, there's really supposed to have only been maybe one photograph from World War One, and really very little mention of her. When that's kind of the one issue I have with this. But anyway, so Wonder Woman's been living her life as just Diana Prince, as an archaeologist and working at the Smithsonian and everything, and ends up that she makes a friend in Barbara Minerva, who is played by Kristen Wiig, and ends up that Diana has to come to the forefront of an issue that is affecting the world in a huge way because of the actions and plans and scheming of Maxwell Lord, a corrupt businessman played by Pedro Pascal. Some of you guys maybe know of him from The Mandalorian, because he is Mando. He's the Mandalorian. So all the while, out of the blue, suddenly, Steve Trevor, who, spoiler if you haven't seen Wonder Woman 3 years ago, Steve Trevor has died. He sacrificed himself back during the war, World War One, and ends up that for some reason he appears, and so now Wonder Woman is happy that Steve Trevor's back, but she has to deal with corrupt businessman Maxwell Lord, as well as her friend from the Smithsonian, Barbara, potentially becoming corrupted in turning into something that she won't be able to even recognize, into a villain that's physically at her same level, so to speak. So I'm trying to be vague because I don't want to get into any spoilers right now. So again, I enjoy this a lot. I enjoyed Wonder Woman, and seeing this, it was fun. I don't really understand quite why this movie takes place in the 1980s as much. I think maybe it was just put in the 80s just because everything over the last several years has been very nostalgic with the 1980s, which really I don't understand why this one had to be in 1980s, the same way with what was it, Captain Marvel had to be in 1990s or anything like that. Something like Stranger Things made sense, and they utilized some of the aspects of the 80s, but to a way that it's glorifying nostalgia of the 80s, which is fine. It's a TV show, it can get away with that, especially if it's a good TV show. But for something like this, I don't see how the 1980s is really something that makes full use and that actually makes things work in this situation, especially, only thing it really does is just kind of create nostalgia about some of the clothes and the fashions and stuff going on during the 80s. But really kind of the showstopper out of this whole movie, in my opinion, person that I wanted to see more and kind of get more to know, and actually was sad to see and everything, and probably the best actor in the whole movie was Pedro Pascal as Maxwell Lord. Again, he's a corrupt businessman, but you kind of understand a little where he's coming from. It gets revealed at the end, but he's hamming this up. He's having fun with it, of playing this villain. But again, he's not evil for the sake of being evil. And I'll address this a little bit more just as I get into spoilers. So, the action is top notch. Still, it's not quite as good as the previous Wonder Woman, because I love that one. Especially, everybody talks about Wonder Woman in the first movie, in her no man's land sequence, and you don't really have any of those, but still, you get some really neat moment. But just how she moves and how fast she is and everything, it's really well done. I think probably my favorite sequence was when she's actually fighting in the desert, basically having to hop between all these different jeeps and military vehicles. I thought that was probably one of the cooler sequences out of all of them. But the other thing I want to address real quick is the music. And I enjoy good music, and the music in this one is done by Hans Zimmer, who has done tons of my favorite scores. He's done Lion King, Gladiator, Pirates of the Caribbean, the Dark Knights trilogy, Man of Steel, so much, and I love listening to his stuff. So he does this score, and a lot of it is very well done. Can be action packed and heavy in other moments. It's just fun and exciting, and I especially love the music on. That's I think on the soundtrack, if you ever pull it up, it's called The Mascara, and I just love that music. It's like, this is like adventure music. It's like this is getting you up, amped up, and ready for something, and full of happiness and stuff. So I don't know. It's just one of those pieces of music that's just fun. You do get to hear the classic Wonder Woman theme all throughout in different ways, which is nice. The theme that you hear is like that one, the electric guitar, but it's not all electric guitar. But still, that's enjoyable. So I would probably give this maybe about a 7.5. It's enjoyable. I would see it again because I enjoyed it that much. But I wouldn't say it's on the level of the original Wonder Woman, which I probably would say that's an 8. Just because that one was very well done. It's fun, it's enjoyable, but also it has a lot of really good story, really good characters, and everything worked in that way. So that's kind of in comparison here. Now, if you made it this far, I'm about to get into some spoilers here. So if you haven't seen the movie, make sure you go see the movie and just come back to this and we'll address it real quick and then we'll talk about it. So here's your spoiler warning. I'm going into spoilers here. You've been warned. So this whole thing revolves around this one thing called like the Dream Stone or the Wishing Stone in a way. And the reason why Steve Trevor comes back is because Diana subconsciously made a wish to have Steve come back. And Steve coming back, the way he comes back is more so like Steve's soul is kind of suddenly appears within the body of another man. And what everybody sees is just this other man. Diana just sees Steve, which that's fun. Which seeing the two of them together again, I think that was probably like, how do they make this work? And I was excited to see the dynamic between the two, and it's fun. I think at times he kind of played a bit for laughs and everything, where he's a bit like ooh ah just about stuff, especially like I don't know about much history. I did kind of check a couple of things, but like he's excited about the escalator and subways when I'm like, wouldn't he have seen that before World War I or even like in the early years of the war before he may have gotten involved? I don't know. But just kind of like that is a little bit kind of silly and stuff. But even just kind of some of the clothes he's putting on, it's pretty hilarious. It made some people that watched it with me kind of chuckle a little bit because they were from the 80s, so they have a better idea in the grasp of the clothes that they wore back then. But just kind of seeing like his reaction to like jets and planes and his excitement about that. It is fun. It's like, okay, he's in heaven, right? And it's like, this is heaven. He gets to see something he loves, but much more established. But the whole thing about him being a pilot, it's not really established in the original Wonder Woman if he was a pilot in the original movie. Because initially he is a pilot in the comics and everything, but really I understood more so that he was just he was a spy that knew how to fly a plane. I don't know if he was ever a pilot per se. So that's kind of an interesting thing, continuity thing there. Kristen Wiig as Barbara Minerva it was enjoyable. I mean, I know that she can, apparently she's very funny, and I'll admit that I kind of enjoyed her a little bit in like maybe one or two things I've seen her in. I don't watch very many comedies just because sometimes some comedies are just way too raunchy. But just kind of way she's kind of being a little more like socially awkward and everything, and then it's like she's fine. Ends up making a wish on the stone to basically become as popular and attractive and as strong as Diana. And so that starts kind of changing things pretty quick for her and everything. And but the big bad, a lot of the material out there has been pushing for Barbara to be the main villain, which Barbara, and for those who don't know who she is, her alter ego is the famous Wonder Woman villain known as Cheetah, who I guess in older comics she used to be just a woman that is in a cheetah costume, but in more recent decades she's been more of kind of this human cheetah hybrid sort of thing. So in a way, but she's always been seen as one of Wonder Woman's primary antagonists, because she's fast and she's strong and often gives Wonder Woman a fight, just because they're both fast and they're both strong and everything. In terms of so the pacing and build-up for her kind of becoming this person, of Kristen Wiig being this lovable person into kind of this more serious person, it makes sense in the context of what they're doing here, but I think, in my opinion, if they took a little more time or even just had her saved for another movie, it would have been better, because it ends up that she's not the primary villain as much as they like to push that in the media. Instead, it's Pedro Pascal's Maxwell Lord. Because what Maxwell Lord ends up doing is, like, with this Dream Stone, you have one wish with it, and with this wishing stone, he ends up making a wish, and you only get one wish, and the one wish he makes is to become the wishing stone, which is a pretty clever way of basically manipulating things and everything. And basically that he comes in contact with everybody, and it's like, what do you wish for? But the thing is, he ends up, there's a twist behind these wishes, where that you may wish for something that you want, but you have to give something up in exchange. So in the case of somebody like Wonder Woman with Diana, she wishes for Steve, but in exchange, she starts losing strength and becomes weaker, to the point that even a bullet, it's not going to bounce off of her, or she becomes slower, or she can't hold on to her lasso as much or anything like that. For Barbara, she wishes to become more like Diana, very popular and attractive and strong, but in exchange, she starts losing more of her own humanity, to the point that, I mean, she's bubbly and she's kind and everything, but then but once she makes her wishes, she becomes more threatening, more antagonistic and hateful, and basically losing the kind heart that she had at the start. And almost to a point that she ends up making I guess if she made another wish, I don't know. They don't really say, but she becomes so much that she loses almost all of her humanity just to become an apex predator, as she's said in some of the promos, and turns into this cheetah human hybrid sort of thing, which can't turn some people off. It may be a bit weird if you're not used to it and you're thinking this is a little bit more realistic, but again, this is comic books. You're dealing with where there's gods, especially with Wonder Woman, you're dealing with that there's gods and magic and stuff like that. Anyway, but Pedro Pascal kind of manipulates the system in a way. Maxwell Lord manipulates it in a way that every single time somebody makes a wish, he's like, I will grant you this wish, but I'm going to take this from you and move on. So it'd be like, somebody's just like, I wish I had this. And he's like, your wish is granted. In exchange, I will take your security, I will take your armies and have them work for me now, sort of thing. Or it's like somebody makes another wish and it's like, your wish is granted, I will take your health for my own, sort of thing. And it's like, whoa, kind of an interesting thing. It's apparently something like monkey paw, where you get your wish, but you lose, where you get your one wish, but you lose the most valuable thing you had, sort of thing. I'm not too familiar with monkey paw or anything like that. They mentioned it a little bit in there, but again, it's pretty interesting. But the only issue is that they find out that this wishing stone is not a good thing. It becomes Wonder Woman finds out this stone is from the gods, and apparently this is from the god of lies and deceptions. And so she automatically knows that this isn't a good thing. That people may be getting their one wish they wanted, but in turns, they're losing something, and ultimately, it's leading to chaos. So, all in all, it's a pretty interesting idea, and it comes full on ahead in the climax because Wonder Woman has to let Steve go, which is heartbreaking, and it's really sad, especially because you enjoy the dynamic between the two of them. Not quite as much as you did in the last one, but it's still enjoyable to get to watch them. But she's having to sacrifice a ton to get her powers back, and stop Maxwell, stop Lord. Now, I've seen something similar to this, where your hero has to sacrifice something huge in order to come back to reality and stop the villain and stuff like that, which I've seen that a little bit better in the Justice League animated series. There was one episode where Superman was kind of like Superman and Batman. These are two episodes. So like Superman was in a dream where basically he had everything he wished that his heart desired, that he was marrying the woman he loved, he had a son, he got to see his family and everything, but something in his mind was kind of telling him that something's not right, and basically he had to forego his dream in order to come back to reality and face the bad guy that put him in that situation, to the point that the bad guy even said that, I put you in a prison of your own desires. It must have been, for you to get out of that, it must have been like tearing off an arm, which I could believe it in that case. Well, not as much on this one because there's a bit more of an issue there. But again, that animated show, the Justice League animated show, is considered to be some of the best animated storytelling and quality. This is just a movie, but it still works. Some other things. One of my favorite scenes actually was the very start, because it's kind of a flashback to when Diana is a young girl living among her people, the Amazons, in Themyscira, Paradise Island. And she's basically kind of doing this whole Ultimate Ninja Warrior obstacle course sort of thing. With the music in that scene is amazing. I love it. Hans Zimmer's a genius when it comes to music. But it was a very enjoyable thing, and I loved it a lot, just getting to watch it. And ultimately, just kind of what ends up happening, I was like, wow, this is really good. It's like, this is a good lesson, because it ends up that at one point during the race, she has to take a shortcut, in a way, just because she lost her horse or something, and she takes a shortcut to try to win, and she's about to win, but her aunt, who trained her and everything, ends up stopping her, and basically says you may win, like there's no victory. Well, really, almost in a way like there's no true victory when you win with lies, or when you lie by cheating, or when you win by cheating. And she's a girl, so she's crying and she's not realizing it in a way. But her aunt and her mother her mother, the queen, is going to come down and try to comfort her and tell her, it's like the only true victory is through truth, in a way. So it's kind of so it's like, wow, hey, it's like she was about to win, but she doesn't win, and gets a good talk to, and it's like, instead of getting the pat on the back, and I'm like, hey, that's a pretty good lesson there. And in all honesty, but how that kind of ties into the whole story, it's a little bit harder to kind of register, because that theme about how, obviously this is the stone made by the god of lies and deceptions. And all these wishes were basically created through lies and deception of, you get the thing you most desire, in return you lose something important. So there's a lie and deception there. But only thing that could stop it is truth, which she carries a lasso of truth. And in the climax, when she's trying to convince, the way that you can stop this whole thing is that if you renounce your wish or you destroy the stone, which is a little bit hard because Maxwell's the stone, so to speak. So it ends up that she's trying to get everybody to renounce their wish and everything. And it's a pretty interesting scene, and a really nice little kind of message and speech that she has in the climax when she's trying to convince not just Maxwell Lord, but apparently while Maxwell Lord's broadcasting to the world, she's trying to convince everybody to renounce their wish through truth, because she's using the lasso. We find out that the lasso can not only force you to tell the truth, this will also show you the truth. So it's kind of an interesting, different thing there. And through that, ends up that Maxwell Lord gets to look back at his past where he came from nothing and came from abusive relationships and everything, and that he's currently about to lose not only his sanity, which you could tell he's starting to lose his sanity over the course of the movie, but not only is he starting to lose his sanity and health, he's about to lose his son, who is all amidst in this chaos of riots and everything that are taking place across the globe. And that wakes him up to renounce his wish, which in turn causes everybody else to renounce their wish, which ends the chaos. And so that's why more so I would say Maxwell Lord is probably one of the better characters in the whole thing, because he's the one that kind of goes through this arc, and you can tell that people are calling him a loser, and he's trying to make something out of him. He's trying to make his son proud of him and everything, but just doing it through ways and through lies and deception and manipulation. When he didn't need to do any of this, his son loved him just for who he was, because he was his father. So, but I'm probably going into a little too much detail there. But again, it's a lot to take in. Well, so a lot of different things in this one. I mean, some little things in there that may be of an issue for those of y'all who are a bit more, like obviously this is addressing, we're dealing with the gods and Greek mythology and stuff like that, and this whole aspect of making wishes and stuff, to a point that you get this person who turns into a human cheetah hybrid. So you get that stuff, the typical superhero stuff. And really, I don't think I've really seen a superhero movie that's not going to get into some of that stuff, unless it's something heavy sci-fi, science sort of thing, where it would more embraces more of the kind of mythology and mysticism of a culture like the Greeks and the Romans per se. So that may be an issue for some people. It is implied that there may be a little bit of people sleeping together, which may be a bit of an issue for some people, which they don't show anything, thankfully, but that's implied in some respects. And especially since like one person wishes they could be more sexy and everything. But really just this whole aspect of that you're seeking, that you wish you could have this. And really when you wish for something, like when you may have all these wishes and desires and stuff like that, you have to, that it just shows the kind of, the plans of the enemy, or the plans of the devil. Just because he may promise things to you, but really it's a hollow lie, it's a hollow truth sort of thing. And even like if like miracles and stuff happen like that, but it's done through demonic forces or new age mysticism and stuff like that, it's a hollow thing, it's a perversion. When really it's the truth that sets you free, and the only truth is Jesus. He's the way, the truth, and the light. And he's the only one that would fulfill your wishes, which wishes is not a good, wishing is one thing, but having hope is something different. And placing your faith in who God is and everything. To quote scripture, trust all these things will be added onto you if you follow Christ. I mean, it's Matthew 6:33. That's the verse escapes me per se. But seek the Lord with all your heart and all his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Which God cares about your dreams. He cares about your desires and stuff like that. And this is not like a do things for him and he'll give it to you sort of thing. He cares about you. It just may not happen in the timing that you expect and everything. So it's just understanding on what God wants for you. And ultimately, he has plans to help you and not hinder you sort of thing. So that's a quick little thing on that. Some things I don't like about this, again, kind of Cheetah should have been her own separate villain in a way. They could have had her be more of a setup instead of making her kind of more of a physical threat to be a lackey for Maxwell Lord. So that kind of took a little bit away from that. The other thing would be like the first time you actually see Wonder Woman appear, which is like right after the whole flashback of her as a kid, you get this whole mall shopping, this mall theft. It's like 4 guys are trying to rob a jewelry store and end up getting a whole lot of these artifacts from a robbery, which one of them happens to be the stone, so it kind of helps get into that. But just the way that Wonder Woman appears out of the blue and everything that goes on in there, it's very reminiscent of the original Spider-Man movies from 2002 and 2004, the Sam Raimi ones, where she's just swinging around and stuff like that. Of course, she has to get the one word in there saying like, I don't like guns. It's like, I don't like guns. It's like, I don't like guns. And it's like, okay, we got to get a little bit of that little subtle political message in there. But aside from that, it's just really corny and it's off-putting, really. It's like, if you just could have done this whole sequence differently, or just not made it so corny and everything, I think it would have made it work. Like, it would have worked in some way. But really, it's just more, it distracts from the whole tone because it may be fun and lighthearted and everything. And you get it, but the rest of the time, it's not, the rest of the tone is not really matching that little silly moment. Just because, I mean, you get some fun little banter between people, but it's still kind of following Maxwell Lord and what is he up to, what's he trying to do, and then it just kind of gets into some very heavy stuff where once it shows kind of the world going into mass chaos because everybody's getting their wish, but also losing something in return. So, again, you could have done without the whole mall robbery sequence at the start of the movie. Some other things in there. I don't really have anything else per se that I didn't like in it as much. Yeah. That's kind of it. Again, I recommend you guys go see it. It might help a little bit if you saw the last one. In terms of just, again, kind of, you may have gotten little hints. There was an issue about Pedro Pascal's Maxwell Lord being inspired by by President Donald Trump, which is nothing new with current movies nowadays to bash on the president or anything like that, which I think it's getting tiresome that we're having to still do that. But honestly, in my opinion, watching it, you might have gotten little hints of it in there, but really, it's not really there. I don't see it. If I didn't think about political stuff as much while watching it, it's fine. I mean, I imagine those who probably will be much more attuned to how politics are playing out and everything may pick up on more stuff in there, but I didn't. I didn't necessarily get any huge things that are relevant in regards to Maxwell Lord being like Trump or something like that. But anyway, I've talked long enough, and hopefully this gave you a bit of an idea. Again, I recommend it. I gave it about, again, a 7.5. Not as good as the last one per se, but still enjoyable. I would see it again. Probably not immediately. This is probably not going to be one of those ones I go see 4 or 5 times in the theaters, or even twice, or maybe even 3 times. I may see it a second time, just depending what's going on. And yes, I did see it in theaters. I don't have HBO Max. I saw it in the theaters because my theaters are open, and it was so nice to be back in the theater again after a whole year has gone by, that sort of thing. Anyway, so that's my 2 cents on Wonder Woman 1984. Go check it out and have some fun with it. Have some laughs. Don't think too much about it, or look for anything heavy or in depth sort of thing. This is not like a mind bender or anything like that. Just go and kind of don't turn off your brain all the way, but just kind of know that it's not going to fool you or anything like that. You may just have to connect a couple of dots, but not much. But yeah, it's a fun movie. I encourage you to go check it out. And what a better person to kind of have fun with and inspire you a little bit better than Wonder Woman. I mean, despite her being a woman, nothing against her. This is actually somebody I would say, like, hey, I want to watch this person more compared to other characters, superheroes from other franchises. So anyway, I hope that this was enlightening and it gave you an idea, and I will catch y'all next time. Take care.